Good morning, everyone. It's September 14th, 2020, and this is the very first episode of SmartFoxTV.
Hello, this is Tracy with Smartfox National News. California Governor Gavin Newsom confirms mail-in ballots will be sent out to voters in October. No matter what side you have chosen, this is your sacred duty, an allegiance that is often taken for granted. Our ancestors once had to fight for their constitutional right. It is an honor to vote, especially as a woman or minority. If you are 18, go vote. The Oscars decided to take a new direction. After the Los Angeles Times investigation shared that the median Oscar membership was 94% white and 77% male, it spun into boycotts of the Oscars and the #OscarsSoWhite. The percentage of women and people from underrepresented racial and ethnic groups has grown since, but the Oscars decided to amp it up, and on September 8th, when the Academy announced a set of new eligibility guidelines for films aiming to compete for Best Picture. The Oscars' new rules are set for 2024, which brings more diversity and inclusion behind the scenes and in the front of camera. 2 out of 4 standards must be met to be eligible. 1 must come from Standard A, which refers to the on-screen representation, themes, or narratives. For example, one of the following must be done. One of the significant characters needs to be from a underrepresented racial or ethnic group, or at least 30% of the secondary or minor actors must contain one of the following groups: women, racial or ethnic groups, LGBTQ, or people with cognitive or physical disabilities, or the storyline must be about the underrepresented group stated. The other standards reference to the people behind the screen, creative teams such as writers, directors, and producers, the industry access, and any opportunities and audience development. That's all I have for national news.
Now it's time for true or false. You cannot taste food unless it's mixed with saliva. An ostrich's eye is bigger than its brain. Tennis was originally played with pans. It only takes 40 seconds for a blood cell to go through your body.
Tracy here with SmartFox News to report a major international scandal straight out of a 007 movie script. A Russian opposition leader, Alexei Navalny, recently came out of a coma after being allegedly poisoned. Navalny, an anti-corruption campaigner known for leading nationwide protests against Russia, was on a flight to Moscow from Tomsk on August 20th and fell ill and was diverted to Omsk. There he was hospitalized for 3 days before he was transferred to Berlin. Many believe that the delay of his transfer was to cover up any findings of foul play. Berlin released the results of a toxicology test, and the test has shown that he was in fact poisoned with Novichok, a nerve agent similar to the one that was used on the Russian spy Sergei Skripal in 2018. Chancellor Merkel stated serious questions needed answered that only the Russian government can and must answer. It is believed that he was poisoned on President Vladimir Putin's orders. The pressure has become even more poignant to cancel the Nord Stream 2 natural gas pipeline, a pipeline that will double the capacity of oil in the undersea route from Russia, which fuels to Western Europe. President Donald Trump and members of Congress believe this will put Germany as overly dependent and captive of Russia. The pipeline is a critical threat to America's national security and must not be completed. That's all for international news.
Oh, it's on. Today in history, September 14th. In 1812, Moscow was burnt to the ground, well, mostly burnt to the ground, by its own people as Napoleon entered the city. And this effectively would start the end of that war, and we know what happened to Napoleon after that. A couple years later, in 1814, across the ocean in America, brand new America, Francis Scott Key penned the Star-Spangled Banner. It wasn't called that yet. but it was the beginning of that song, which would of course become our national anthem. In 1847, another U.S. history bit, General Scott entered Mexico City, capturing it, thus beginning the end of the Mexican-American War. About 50 years later, another bit of American history, Teddy Roosevelt was elected as president, the youngest to serve after McKinley was killed by an assassin. 1950, another 50 years later, Western Allies rearmed West Germany only about 5 years after the war. And today, in 2020, SmartFoxTV starts. I'm Chris Yeates, and this has been Today in History.
As much as I would like to do my segment with this filter in Snapchat, I won't.
I don't know about you, but my wanderlust has been through the roof. With COVID-19, a lot of people have been limited on where they can and cannot go, especially traveling outside of California. So you see a lot of families and persons investing in traveling locally, or going hiking, going camping. But for me and my family, we decided to go to Palm Springs.
So the fun fact about this hotel is that it was founded by Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz, in 1957. If you don't know them, your parents might, and they're from I Love Lucy. So that was a fun fact. It's not something I really knew when I first came here. Because of COVID-19, there's not really much you can do outside in the city other than ordering takeout and such, but we had our fun here. They had complimentary breakfast every morning, and that was a real breakfast. It wasn't like what some of the hotels give you, just like a box of cereal and some milk and some coffee, some random fruits, They actually had a really good meal for you, and they're practicing a social distancing, which you can see the blue on the floor, was actually very good. We had to wait and then just move up when it was our turn. Another thing we did to have fun there, at least, was to go into the pool. They had a really good system. They had a reservation system where you had to reserve the hours that you wanted to go. And then when it was your turn to go, you would be provided with wristbands where you're able to enter the pool at that time. As you can see, people are pretty spaced out. It looks like this is the only family that really had that reserved time, and you can see one on the other side too. People aren't really trying to mingle like that, and of course you are wearing masks throughout the whole time that you're there, especially if you're just walking around the hotel. They require you to have a mask.
So I hope you guys found that a little bit interesting. Again, there's not really much we can do right now because of all the travel restrictions, but even going out and about. For me and my family, we went to Indian Wells Resort in Palm Springs because it's just a little bit out of the way. So it was about an hour from where we live. For my brother and them, it was about an hour and 20. But when we got there, the big thing about us was just family time and being able to socialize with one another. Of course, we did it safely. We were wearing our masks within the hotel, and the hotel itself had its own procedures that they went through to keep their guests safe.
Hi, this is Sally Feng, and today we'll be talking about how COVID-19 has affected different houses of worship. I'll be bringing in Pastor David Han to share his thoughts. Pastor David, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Sally, for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So the first question I have for you is, how has COVID-19 affected your church?
COVID-19 had a great impact on the world, as well as the churches all over the world. At the beginning, we did not know much about COVID-19, and we were told that millions of people could die. And as you know, we were to be quarantined for 2 weeks, but it has been about half a year. For our church, we have been meeting online for services, but honestly, it has been quite the challenge because church isn't only about Sunday worship services, but it is also about living our lives together.
So the second question I have for you is, during the pandemic early on, churches were very compliant with the local health restrictions. But as the pandemic has kind of gone on in the past few months, we've heard of churches filing lawsuits with their local state officials, citing First Amendment rights and their right to practice their religion. So what are your thoughts on this?
As I mentioned before, we were told that millions could die. Well, many people have died, but not millions. Each person's life is very important, And I understand why some government officials are acting the way they are. They want to decrease the chances of people catching COVID-19. And I also understand why some churches are gathering again. Because for Christians, there's nothing more important than obeying God's words. We are called to meet together to spur one another toward love and good deeds. We believe every life is important, and we also believe that the spiritual life is important, even more important. So gathering together not only helps us grow spiritually, but also brings life to those who are spiritually dead. The churches that are defying the orders of the state and local government are not purposely doing so. They would love to submit to the authorities as long as it doesn't go against God's words, because God's authority is the highest authority.
Thank you, Pastor David, for coming today and sharing your thoughts on how COVID-19 has affected houses of worship.
Well, thank you for having me here. It was a pleasure.
Did you get them all correct? You cannot taste food unless it's mixed with saliva. True. An ostrich's eye is bigger than its brain. True. Tennis was originally played with pans. False. It only takes 40 seconds for a blood cell to go through your body. False.
Thanks for watching SmartFox TV. As this is our opening week, we want to thank you for watching. I'm Chris Yeates.
I'm Kim.
I'm Sally.
I'm Tracy.
Until next time, stay foxy.
Stay foxy.